Hi, my name is Kyle Torrance, and I will be doing a vlog review of a book called Forgiving as We've Been Forgiven by Dr. Celestin Musikura and Dr. L. Gregory Jones. Celestin grew up as a Hutu in a Rwandan village. He has seen firsthand the horrible sins committed by people all around him. He has also founded ALARM, which stands for African Leadership and Reconciliation Ministries. Greg is an academic theologian who has wrote much about forgiveness and worked to make it one of the main ideas taught when training Christian pastors and teachers. They both share their experiences and views on forgiveness overall, as well with the horrible acts of the Rwandan genocide. The next thing I want to talk about is this idea of forgiveness and what comes to my mind when I hear the word. When I hear the word forgiveness, many things come to my mind. One of the first thoughts I have about the idea of forgiveness is how hard it is. For this to be a first thought proves just how difficult it is to forgive. We as human beings are not perfect, and we make many mistakes. We should forgive because we know we are not perfect, and that makes and means that those around us are not either. This is why it's so hard. If your longtime friend, for example, accidentally lost a present that you got them, this would be an easier situation because you've known that person for a long time and it was an accident. Now, on the other hand, if a random person comes up to you and punches you in the nose, you're going to have a harder time forgiving them. Those were some individual examples, but now can you imagine some community ones? Imagine your friends and family getting murdered by people who are just like you, but lost and thinking what they were doing was right. This is what happened in Rwanda. Regardless of the situation, we must learn to forgive. Things happen daily that make us think and ask why, but we must continue to forgive to set us free. The next topic I want to discuss is what does forgiveness redeem us from and what does forgiveness redeem us to? Forgiveness redeems us of sin. The Lord sent His Son to die on the cross to forgive us of our sins, so we can have everlasting life with Him. We have been forgiven, and we are most definitely not worthy, so why can we not forgive others? I also want to talk about a wrong done against me and how I might begin to offer the imperfect forgiveness that Celestin describes. Compared to the Rwanda people, it is so hard to even mention something as minor as a wrong done against me. One situation I can think of is when I was applying for a scholarship and summer program, in which case would extremely help me financially and educationally. I had two friends who also were applying. My application was 26 pages long. I filled everything out truthfully, honestly, and it was my work. One friend had his mother fill almost the entire application out, while the other lied about what they had done and stretched the amount of service they had also done. I actually had helped one of them on their applications. They both ended up receiving the scholarship, and I ended up going to the final level and got a letter saying that I was cut. This is so minor to other people, but is an example of when I chose to forgive. Forgiveness, according to Celestin, offers new hope and a new future between those involved. It is only possible when God's power takes over our will for human justice. And this was found on page 23 of the paperback book. In the book, Greg Jones suggests 6 steps that make up the dance of forgiveness. And I kind of want to talk about which one is the hardest for me and how I'm going to deal with that and get better with that step. Personally, I would have to say that step number 2 is the hardest for me. They say 90% of the problem is identifying that you have one. For me, this is so true. I honestly think that this is true for many people as well. The whole process would go so much smoother if we realize that we are mad, upset, and then develop a desire to overcome those feelings through God. I like to hold problems in and act like they don't bother me. So I would say my first way of practicing this step is going to be confronting myself right when I feel the anger and pain coming on. This will act as a trigger over time for me to calm myself and identify what is happening. As I continue this review and talk about a few questions, I want to discuss the idea of community and community forgiveness. In the community, forgiveness must be done by all, not just one person. That would just be individual forgiveness. It must be done by members who realize their new identity and their communion with God and one another. Oftentimes, an individualistic view of life prevents people from practicing Christian disciplines intended for the community. This idea of what I was kind of discussing can be found on page 114 of the book. Of course, there are many things we all need to work on. One of those, I believe, is accepting people who are, quote, different. than us. This could mean race, religion, or any diversity at all. But diversity is a good thing because we see new ideas and different backgrounds, and that makes us stronger. I think sometimes those around us don't want to accept others because they think that they're bad ones, but in fact, it makes those who won't accept them in the wrong. I think just by welcoming and spreading the whole love and kindness to all instead of excluding people would be a great start to this. In the book, Greg discusses the idea of learning to remember our past differently. And he also talks about remembering well. Well, what does this mean and what must we learn from it? Well, this is very good advice he gives about our past and remembering. He starts out on page 88 saying, "We're not able to remember everything we experience. This is both a blessing and a curse. This holds true to our own lives. We want to remember the good times but forget about all the pain that comes with the bad times. The truth is, the smallest thing can bring good and bad memories back to us. It's hard to forget something that traumatized us and, quite frankly, impossible. For those people who have had a horrible event such as betrayal, murder, or sexual assault happen to them or someone else that they're close to, it's hard to confront those feelings that come with that, but we must to be truly healed from them. We have to remember the good times and all the love that is out there." Greg says, despite all we've said about the impossibility of forgetting, there's a sense in which only those who are willing to ultimately forget will be able to remember well, and that's found on page 95. This next topic is kind of tough to grasp and get the whole idea of, but what is grace of non-remembering? When can it be experienced, and how is it different from forgetting? Well, grace of non-remembering is such a powerful concept. First, we must accept what has happened and then start the healing process. The hard thing to understand about the healing process is that it makes us hurt, but it must be done in order to be healed fully. On page 96, it says, "In this life, we must be guided by the memory of sin as a shield against sin. Sometimes we must put away the shield in order to embrace the other. An example of this is when Maggie, who witnessed the massacre of many people in her home village, actually built a swimming pool years later on the site where so many people died. Although it was a site of blood spilt, it now brings joy and renewal to all the kids in the orphanage that she runs. She did not cover up and hide the pain, but instead took it head on and faced the pain, which is replaced with joy now. That's the difference of grace of non-remembering and forgetting." I will now talk about how this book has changed and enhanced my vision and understanding of forgiveness, and what practices that I'll incorporate in my life after reading this book. Prior to reading this book, I never looked at forgiveness as deep as I have now. I always just simply thought that forgiving was hard, but it needed to be done. So often we want to forgive when it is convenient for us. Well, that's not how it should be. Now I understand that forgiveness is the heart of the gospel, and if we are to live our lives that shine forth God good news, we have to learn the way of living to make peace. Celestine mentions this on page 29. Forgiveness is so powerful because it sets us free and allows us a new start. The whole idea of forgiveness is something that everyone should learn and not just simply do just because they feel like they have to, but they should really understand it because this is what moves the world forward. Celestine and Greg have wrote a really wonderful book. This is one that I would highly recommend as it shows a different side of forgiveness and why we really should forgive. The experience the authors had is very sad and shocking, but shows us that we can overcome any trauma and horrible event in our lives. This book right here is one that I believe all people should read. The experiences in here is something unimaginable. We never want to experience it, but we have learned from other people's experiences what forgiveness really and truly is. Thank you for watching this vlog, and I hope that I answered all the questions that was right, and have a nice day. Thank you.